What's up, guys? Welcome back to Amazing RC. It's your boy Brian, and we're talking WPL C24 today. And you guys have been following the channel. We're on day, I don't know, 3 or 4. The last two kind of molded together because to get it to where we're at right now, it took a lot of custom work. I gotta enforce the fact that I didn't buy all of the upgrades that are, optional for this truck. In between every really awesome upgrade that I've put in here is a stock part. And I have a feeling that because I didn't get like all of the linkage, I think that it's harming the suspension to the car. Same thing with the shocks. We still got the same spring shocks. And I think that once I do replace those parts on here, we're going to have a completely different beast. Now, with that said, the steering servo we swapped out for proportional steering, and we actually robbed our 6-wheel drive E-Sheens here for the steering servo. A good buddy of mine actually told me that the parts that come on this should swap right over to here, and he was right. Now, the box that holds the steering servo did not swap over, so I merely zip-tied the steering servo right in there. And then I went ahead and put the stock steering linkage back in, and I think that's where my issue started. We had this really great steering servo, and then your stock linkage, and it's yanking on these. These wheels are really sticky. So I went through a bunch of different configurations, and I swapped out and greased a bunch of stuff in here. Well, all it was just this little tiny spacer. I basically took the steering linkage, it's at 90 degrees, to the servo horn. So that helped, really well. And the steering works perfectly now. So got that one in, and we moved over to the motor transmission meeting our brand new metal axle housings. And I'll tell you, the metal axle housings are gorgeous. The issue with those is that I put the stock gearing back in them. And I can just imagine that if I were to opt for the metal gears that go in there, I would imagine that with those and maybe bearings instead of the little plastic bushings that are in there now, I think it would run a little bit better. Now, don't get me wrong, it runs good now. It's nice and smooth, it runs great. But when you're not tugging away with this over-the-top motor and transmission, and you're doing it with your hand, you can tell that there's definitely some resistance in there. Now, the motor's nice and cool even after this run. Everything was icy cold still, so I can't complain too much, but I know there could be better. So I'm going to definitely get the metal gears and swap those out as well. All the drive shafts come with 2 set screws for both sides, and the set screws, they are tiny, tiny set screws. It comes with their own little Allen wrench, and I couldn't imagine what I would use that Allen wrench for besides just these set screws. They're that small. So I've got 2 on both sides, and apparently one of them loosened up just a little bit because our rear end shut down outside. So I'm going to pull the set screws, I'm going to Loctite them all and put them all back in. The reason I didn't do that to begin with is because I wasn't sure if that's where my drive shafts were going to end up, because we were just going outside to kind of test things. So the drive shafts went in great. They're amazing, and they're really, really nice looking. And that brings us to basically where we are now. And as you can see, it runs great. Now we got to try to get the body on it, and we've changed quite a bit. One of the things that we swapped out was the ESC Receiver. This ESC Receiver actually comes out of our 6x6 here, and the reason that we chose this is because that came with proportional steering, and that's what we wanted in this truck. Remember, for this 6-wheel drive, we're going to put either the same electronics into this, we're going to purchase a new set, or we're going to upgrade to maybe 1/10 scale and just go crazy with it. So with taking on the new ESC and Receiver, our on-off switch has been moved, and I wouldn't dare take it off this board. The on-off switch before actually goes through this chassis plate here, and you would turn it on and off from underneath. This one would be hiding underneath this plate here, and you can't really get to it because the body's going to be on top of it. So that's not going to work. I have to figure out where to put this somewhere to where I have access to it. So that I have going on. The only other thing that I have to do as far as modifying the body itself is I got to modify the rear end back here. There's a dugout right here for the stock motor. This is going to have to be taken out quite a bit for this giant transmission and motor that obviously get in the way. They're not going to let it down, we'll say that. Other than that, I need to order a couple parts. I definitely want to get shocks. Now, the shocks that come with this, they're quiet now, but they weren't before. At first, I was just going to throw a washer on all 4 of them, and then I noticed that the way that the shocks were made, there's a portion of the shock that actually goes into the chassis. So what I did was I actually pulled the screw, and I just chopped a teeny tiny little bit of it off because the screw is basically bottoming out inside the shock. These shocks are internal spring shocks, but they're oil-less shocks. They don't have any oil in them at all. So I want to get a new set of shocks. Until then, I shortened all 4 screws, and it's nice and tight, everything. I'm pretty sure it operates quite a bit better. So guys, that's pretty much where we're at right now with the WPL C24. I'm very happy with it. My next big task is to get this body on top of this vehicle, and then we're going to get a full-on run video. So until then, guys, it's Brian, Amazing RC, WPL C24. We got her loaded up. We'll get you guys another really cool video very, very soon.